All right, so today the project I'm going to be demoing is Coda. Oops. A proposal for a new record label structure. Ah, these animations are always janky. There we go. And the idea is to facilitate artist equity in the form of token issuance in exchange for financial and crowdsourcing aid. Um, so a brief intro on who I am. My name is Young-Joong. I go by YJ. I recently graduated from UC Berkeley with a degree in cognitive science, literally 3 weeks ago. I also have founded and co-host an independent podcasters network at UC Berkeley, where we don't have smart contracts, but we operate a lot like a decentralized network, which is where the inspiration for Coda came. And you'll see that later. Most recently, I worked as a software engineer or internet software engineer at a YC-backed traditional payments gateway startup, where I saw the mess of what interbank transfers look like, and gained an appreciation for what Bitcoin allows for people not in privileged financial backgrounds. I have mostly a background in full stack web development, though mostly focused on backends. And these days, before I start my full-time job, I'm hunting bounties on Bitcoin, trading crypto, holding and building. All right, so the problem today with the music industry, as you may all know, is one such that musicians don't have the resources, the network, or the ability to go out on their own and profit from their music, even if they have a large fan base. And traditionally that was okay because record labels could step in as a third party and offer these services. Today, in a highly digitized economy, that's absolutely unnecessary. And this pie chart is just meant to demonstrate how ridiculous the payout contracts look like. Musicians, as you can see, take a very, very small cut of the overall pie. And this is just Spotify, but other record labels will actually add sub-clauses where if the artist were to be successful in other fields down the line, not just in music, but if they were to get contracted into acting in Hollywood, the record label itself would take a cut of that too for their future success because they supported them early on. Musicians, the starving artists, have no choice to take this opportunity, and they end up getting screwed. So this is just more evidence of the problem. No need to read all of this. But the problem that I'm fixing with the app that I'll be demoing soon is getting rid of that middleman and creating an open source community, a decentralized network of people who have specialized in certain modules in the music production assembly line, if you will. And with tokens as a representation of equity in the artist's project, those tokens can be used not only as representation of rights to that music, to that piece of work, it can also be used as incentive for people in the overall Coda network to come and contribute to songs, essentially like open sourced music production rather than software. This entire record label structure can be remodeled to be decentralized and using smart contracts. We can essentially eliminate the big record labels that we see today. Now, this problem has obviously been tackled by a lot of different entities, but mostly you can see they tackle artist identity, distribution, storage, marketing, but this entire area up here, that's a big blue ocean of opportunity, and that has not been tackled so much yet. And that's what Coda is going to go for. So you start with submitting an idea, describe your art, submit a demo, your previous works, headshots, just like one might do for a record label. But the idea for them is to sell regular people to invest in their idea. Then they can issue their tokens to finance the future success of their piece, and use the tokens as bounties to collaborate, where people, certain musicians such as an expert beat maker might not have the vocal chops, but within this network, they don't have to go to a record label to find a male vocalists. They can find people directly within the Coda network. And then you can release creative freedom, royalty rights are all recorded on the blockchain, immutable, transparent, and censorship resistant. So, okay, brief demo. Oops. Okay. So this is a landing page. You come in and you can see different featured artists on the front page. This is just an explanation of what I just went through. And we're modeled a lot after Start Engine, which is similar to this, except for regular startups. It opens a pool of investors up from private equity up to the public. And here you can see, you can just search for people to help you with certain parts of music production assembly line. Now, if I were an artist, this is a demo where I want to get funded. I want to create a token. So I'm using Yeezus from Kanye West as an example because fairly recently, Kanye West had an outburst, him amongst many people, had an outburst that he didn't want so many intermediaries taking a cut in his musical genius. So I think he would be a early adopter of this. Set tokens symbol to Kanye, some random token supply. And here the gas price is pretty high. That is, I thought was a bug. It might actually end up being a feature built into Ethereum because we really don't want people to be spamming the network and creating a ton of shitcoins. But we can always go audit that and reduce the gas price otherwise. So there, now we have a Kanye coin, and then now we're gonna launch a crowd sale. Use that token address. Crowd sale wallet is going to be another address. The token price per unit, so you can get 1,000 Kanyes per ETH that you pay. Total goal for 3,000, that would be like $2.5 million, I think, at Ethereum's price right now. Launch your crowd sale, deploy successful, and now you have a token address and a crowd sale address. Crowd sale address is where people will come and pay money. So when we go to discover artists, now we have a Yeezus album offering. Once we go to see the offering, you can see all the details that we just filled in, that same crowd sale address. And right now for this demo, I've hard-coded the fund project button to pay 1 ETH, or 10 ETH rather. So you just on the project, and then so now you have a stake in Kanye's Yeezus album. And below here, part of what I didn't get to with the UI would be a roadmap, a sort of a pitch deck, the headshots, the demos, current and previous collaborators for how the rights and rewards will be distributed, etc., etc. And here you also see a find bounty tab, which I didn't get to implement. But how that works is a lot like how Gitcoin works. If you haven't heard of Gitcoin, it's an incentive. It's an incentive network to grow open source software, and I think we can do a similar thing with the music industry, where you post your tokens. Like here it's just ETH, but okay. Well, you can post your tokens in exchange for those tokens for people who have who believe that this could be potentially successful, will have an incentive to contribute and do the best job. so that their financial stake in that project is rewarded in the future. And to go through the code a little bit, Coda music token for this demo, it's just basically an ERC20 token. In the future developments, it will definitely have more customizability for the users. If they want to be burning or minting, obviously it's ownable. For this demo, it was just a standard ERC20 token that's held in a registry, much like a factory. And we essentially just deploy new tokens. This is the expensive function. Let's see. And then crowd sale is much similar, very similar to that. Just a regular crowd sale. Again, moving forward, this would be much more customizable. So different types of crowd sale contracts would be available for people who want to have different types of crowd sales. And yeah, and when you buy, the registry keeps track of the address of each crowd sale that's been launched on Coda, and then you can buy tokens through the OpenZeppelin crowd sale interface. Okay, back to the slides. So yeah, this is very similar to what Start Engine does with startups, as I've said before, and this is made possible through a series of new regulations that permit, to a certain degree, issuance of securities for non-accredited investors. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not really in a position to dig very deeply into this, but this is the research that suggests that issuing these securities tokens, issuing artist tokens as securities is permitted under US law, under Title III, yeah, regulation crowdfunding. We could potentially partner with Start Engine as a music arm or branch, or we could spin off as a separate thing entirely. And just to reiterate the point, the music industry has moved forward a great deal thanks to technology. Independent musicians are able to create pieces of work that rival the work put out by record labels. The value add of a record label is really obsolete at this point. So a smart contract is likely, or a series of smart contracts to allow artists to collaborate with each other and have fair pricing of their work will be very, very in big demand. So next step will be, first is adding a vesting mechanism for the musicians as they meet milestones. Of course, we want to solve the problem of starving artists. We don't want them to be starving because they have good work, but we also don't want them to have a ton of money and just run away. So I think a vesting mechanism baked into the smart contract would add a degree of trust on both, for both early investors and also bounty hunters. Adding an internal decentralized exchange.
Oh yeah, I think you cut out for a moment, but you're back.
Oh, okay. Where did I cut off?
For like 5 seconds. You're good.
Okay. So yeah, the second thing would be an internal decentralized exchange. This is not necessary, but it could potentially be something worth researching to add an incentive mechanism so that the good projects sort of bubble up and the bad ones disappear. Adding a bounty system for collaborative music production, as I mentioned. Then we'll deploy to a test network for an alpha test with a very small number of musicians. Do a code audit, make sure our gas prices are not incredibly high and unusable, and we don't have any security vulnerabilities, which shouldn't be so much of an issue because all the smart contracts so far have abided with the OpenZeppelin interfaces. And then from there on, we'll be sourcing musicians, producers, all the people within that network, deployed to a mainnet, and then we'll scale up from there. And that was my entire presentation. You can reach me. I think LinkedIn would be the best way to reach me if you have any questions. And also now would be a good time for questions. Thank you very much.
A really great job, Young. Love it. The big thing is now, let's say artists start to raise money, right, on this platform, and then do you envision like artists possibly getting listed on like on exchanges?
So because for them to list each of their tokens on like a Binance or Huobi, it will cost them quite a lot of money. That's the reason for considering this, exploring this option, so that there's an internal exchange where you can actually just trade the tokens for other tokens, other Coda music tokens.
I see. Okay, got it. Yeah, that would certainly be great. So it's a decentralized exchange for Coda tokens.
Yeah.
Very cool.
I had a question. You didn't list on there, how are you going to make money? Are you going to take a percentage off the transactions also, or are you going to keep some of the tokens?
Yeah, so there's two options to be explored. I think the number one most interesting way to do this would be for each crowd sale listing for Coda and the contributors to take a percentage equity or stake in the tokens, and that would end up being a lot like a venture capital model, where they sort of just invest in a lot of tokens, a lot of different projects, and a couple that do really successful will be the bulk of the network gains. Another way to do it, which is what Singularity TV does currently, or Tokit under Singularity TV does, is that they take a fee per token listing, a flat fee per token listing.
What was the most challenging part of the Solidity development?
Honestly, I think the hardest part was the thinking about design, because there are so many different ways to do the same thing, and I think gas costs and ease of use come down to how you design it in the beginning. So the hardest part was thinking about all the different ways that people will want to interact with the smart contracts, rather than just building one sort of way to do it. But the actual code for Solidity, I think, was pretty straightforward.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's really hard to imagine how it becomes used, the architecture. That's like the hardest part.
Mm-hmm.
Young, this is Rich again. Are you going to need a back end for yours to run it, or is everything going to run in a smart contract?
Yeah, so it would make sense to hold most, just the token crowd sales rights distribution on a smart contract, and everything like everything else would just be on something like a MySQL database, where we just keep track of who launched what, so that we're not constantly making calls to the blockchain. The only place where it's absolutely necessary that we hit the blockchain is where tokens are created. People send funds to a crowd sale, so those things are immutable. But things like just their demo or their image would probably be better suited for a centralized database. Yeah, so currently it doesn't have a backend. It's all React on the front end, and straight to a local blockchain hosted by Ganesh. Yeah.
Amazing job, Young. Love it.
Okay. Any other questions?
So, Young, yeah, very, very interesting project, and definitely a big problem that needs to be solved. And so I commend you for tackling this. I guess my question would be partly a comment, but just to think about other music-related projects that are out there that are tackling a similar problem about artist compensation. So I can think of probably a couple that are playing more on the that are really more on the streaming side of the media, right? So looking at compensating the users for streaming the artist, and then the artists get, but also the artists get a get a larger percentage, along with content aggregators and stuff like that. So I think what I would encourage you to think about is how would this interact with these other services, because it's all going to be related, right? So the artists are ultimately going to be getting royalties, and they're going to getting all these other all these income stream from potentially these other platforms or decentralized applications. So it'll be interesting to see how you would interact with those, and if there would be kind of a mechanism of exchanging tokens, or how you would work that out. So that's really more of a business model question, I guess, but just something to think about. And then also, right now a lot of the artists, part of the way that they make their money is currently through events and through venues. So it will be also interesting to see how you would incorporate that. That wasn't clear necessarily to me from the presentation. I'm sure you thought about that. But also, as you think about the milestones, things that, like that, whether they tour, what type of reception they got from the audience. So just ways to kind of make this even a little bit, making sure that this actually truly interacts well with some of the ecosystem that's currently out there.
Yeah, that's definitely a very good point about how musicians make a lot of their money from concert sales and merchandising, even.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Great job.